So in the last video, we did the questions that dealt with passage 1. So passage 1 dealt with 42, 43, 44, 45, 46. Now we're going to deal with the questions that deal with passage 2, which are only two questions, 47, 48. If you look, 49, 50, 51, 52 all deal with both passages. So basically, we stick to, when we have dual passages, we focus on passage 1, kind of do the piece by piece approach, do the questions for passage 1. After passage 1's done, we focus on passage 2, do the same thing. After we're done with passage 2, then we can focus on the questions that deal with both passage 1 and passage 2. So again, let me just put passage 2 here. So you guys should have your tests out so you can follow along with me, or your prep book, your SAT study guide. So passage 2, again, we want to read, the very first step is we want to read the first paragraph and summarize. The motivation for deep space travel is shifting from discovery to economics. The past year has seen a flurry of proposals aimed at bringing celestial riches down to Earth. No doubt this will make a few billionaires even wealthier, but we all stand to gain. The mineral bounty and spin-off technologies could enrich us all. Now, I'm actually going to read a little bit further because I see a but. So we have these lines, blah, 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 blah. Let's see, 46 through 52. Talking about how great everything is, but be careful whenever you see something like a contrasting word, like a but or however, pay careful attention. So normally we would just read the first paragraph and summarize, but see this but, and I'm going to read a little bit further. Because they could say something, the author could say something, and then the author could be like, well, but actually I don't believe that. This is what I really believe. But before the miners start firing up their rockets, we should pause for thought. At first glance, space mining seems to sidestep most environmental concerns. There is probably no life on asteroids, and thus no habitats to trash, but its consequences, both here on Earth and in space, merit careful consideration. So it does kind of contrast here. So if we look at both of these paragraphs combined, first part is talking about all the good prospects for space mining. So I'll just put a happy face. Profits. But then the second part, it's like, but be careful. Let's be careful about this. Let's approach it carefully. Let's not get in a rush here. Let's look at the environmental consequences and so on. So that's kind of a summary of not just the first paragraph, but the first two paragraphs. Pay attention to contrasting words like but, however, and so on. Now, the only two questions we have for passage 2 that deal specifically with passage 2 are number 47 and 48. 47 is more of a general question. So we're going to do that second. It's talking about the central claim of passage 2. So let's do 48 first. This one's more specific. It's just talking about line 68. So we've read lines 46 through, let's see, 55, 56, 57, 58 through 59. So let's just keep reading from 60 until we get to 68, because it says, as used in line 68, hold most nearly means what? So I'm just going to continue from 60. Part of this is about principles. Some will argue that space's magnificent desolation is not ours to despoil, just as they argue that our own planet's poles should remain pristine. Others will suggest that glutting ourselves on space's riches is not an acceptable alternative to developing more sustainable ways of earthly life. History suggests that those will be hard lines to blank. So remember, when the word's there, just pretend that's a blank where it says hold. History suggests that those will be hard lines to blank, and it may be difficult to persuade the public that such barren environments are worth preserving. So, can we put a word in there? In the paragraph before, they're all talking about preservation and conservation, and in line 69, it says that such barren environmentalists are worth preserving. So, we could use the word preserve. Don't look at the answer choices. So history suggests that those would be hard lines to preserve. That's a key clue in line 69 where it says worth preserving. Another one would be those are tough lines to keep, or tough lines to keep up, to keep alive. Let's figure out what word could go in there. Now let's go to the answer choices. A, B, C, D. So instead of picking the right answers, let's eliminate. What words are least like preserve, keep up? So B, grip, not gripping at anything, like with our hands. Restrain, we're not restraining anything, not withstanding anything. So maintain is most like preserve, keep up. So the answer is A. So just use the elimination method here. It's a lot easier. Now let's continue. So we left off at preserving. So I'm going to just finish up the rest of the essay, 70 through the end of passage 2, and then we can go back to question 47. After all, they exist in vast abundance, and even fewer people will experience them than have walked through Antarctica's icy landscapes. There's also the emerging off-world economy to consider. The resources that are valuable in orbit and beyond may be very different to those we prize on Earth. Questions of their stewardship have barely been broached, and the relevant legal and regulatory framework is fragmentary, to put it mildly. Space miners, like their earthly counterparts, are often reluctant to engage with such questions. One speaker at last week's Space Mining Forum in Sydney, Australia, concluded with the plea that regulation should be avoided. But miners have much, again, but. So regulation should be avoided. The author kind of seems to want regulation, to be careful, and to look out for the environment. Then it said somebody that speaker from Sydney, Australia, concluded with the plea that regulation should be avoided, but, again, so he's probably going to go against that. But miners have much to gain from a broad agreement on the for-profit exploitation of space. Without consensus, claims will be disputed, investments risky, and the gains made insecure. It is in all of our long-term interest to seek one meaning, I guess, regulation, consensus, out. So again, passage 2 saying, yes, lots of advantages to space mining, profits and stuff, but we need to be careful. We need to consider the environmental effects. We need consensus. We need regulation. So he or she, the author, is preaching a more conservative approach, not just jumping in and without carefully considering the consequences. Now let's go to 47. The central claim of passage 2 is that space mining has positive potential, right? Positive potential, but we need to be careful, just like we just said. So let's go and eliminate the ones that are least like what we just said. It will end up encouraging humanity's reckless treatment of the environment. Well, he doesn't go out and say that. That's a little bit extreme. He never says that. He's like, but we need to be careful. Its effects should be thoughtfully considered before it becomes a reality. That's similar to what we said. So let's keep this. C. Such potential may not include replenishing key resources that are disappearing on Earth. Again, does not say that. We could interpret that, but it never says that in the text. D. Experts disagree about the commercial viability of the discoveries it could yield. There's no disagreement in terms of how viable it is commercially. So the answer is B. So now we're done with the questions for passage 2. In the next video, we will deal with 49 through 52, which deals with looking at both passages at the same time. See you there.